Welcome to Newcomer's Podcast, where I speak with immigrants like myself, and in the process, I explore what it means to be an immigrant. You know, there used to be a time in Canada when the rules were very different. Come here, study hard in a Canadian school, graduate, work for a year or two, and you apply for your PR, and boom, you're a Canadian. Not anymore. Not anymore. But I think what's tiring in all of the rule change is how we've taken one brush and used that to paint everyone. Oh yeah, they should all go. Yeah, they probably did something illegal, or they didn't know what to do with themselves. Just very funny arguments. Have you ever sat down to talk with someone who is in that situation, just to kind of understand why they came, what they had in mind when they came here, and how all this change feels for them? Have you? Well, I've got one for you. Alyanna moved here in 2019 as a student, and that was the pathway she saw. And now she's trying to get a PR, and it's almost impossible because everything's changed overnight. Let's get to her story. Yes, we're off.
Hello.
Hi. I mean, thanks for doing this, honestly. Like, thank you. Because whenever I see people who want to share their story, I'm like, yeah, it's not easy to decide to talk about your story, because it can get very emotional. You can explore parts of you that you haven't dug into for a bit. Some people say that sitting on this seat with me is like therapy. So
Okay. I want to get some free therapy right now.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, awesome. Like, I'm just gonna listen while you talk. That's what I'll do. That's the part I'll do. I don't know if I can give the right advice.
Sorry, like, just to cut in, like, especially when it comes to immigration, which I think in recent years has become a topic that brings so many emotions out from people. There's the rising anti-immigration sentiment, not just in Canada, but all over the world. So I totally understand why talking about your immigration experience or what it's like to be an immigrant can be quite a courageous act. Not that I'm saying I'm a brave person, but like, people in general who talk about immigration, their own immigration experiences, I find them to be quite brave and inspiring. So yeah.
Oh, thanks. That's so good to hear. So I think we'll kick this off with, I want to understand, like, tell me a bit about when you were making the call, because I feel like Canada is an amazing place, but it's cold, and it has its Canadian theme. So when you were choosing Canada, like, what was going through your head? Like, why Canada? I mean, because a lot of people decide to go to the States. A lot of people decide to go to Europe. I mean, Europe is more interesting. It's the roads, the places to go. Like, so why Canada?
Oh, this is a long story. But basically, so around 2019, that's when I finished my grade 12 year. And so I was looking during my grade 12, I was looking to, where am I going to study university? And I did consider the States, but around that time, I was kind of freaked out by their, lax gun control problems. I feel like that really, made me scared about going to the States and living there. And I think that was also when Donald Trump was in power. So yeah, I didn't want to go to the States, but I did consider Australia. I applied to schools in Australia, in the UK, and also in Canada. But what really drew me to Canada was, number one, the flexibility to kind of, you can enter university not knowing what you want to major in general across the country. And then you kind of after taking a few classes, you can kind of decide what you want to major in. In the UK and Australia, you have to you have to be admitted to a certain specific program and stick to that. It's so hard to switch. And at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to major in. So I was like, okay, Canada is like, plus points for them. And at the same time, what really drew me in was the prospect of, like, after graduating, you can work for 3 years here in Canada, unlike in Australia and the UK, where they kind of kick you out immediately. And I wanted to acquire some work experience abroad. So yeah, that's why I chose Canada. To be honest, like I didn't really think about the cold, but I don't like the cold here. I'll be so honest.
Because I came as a PR, and I know I thought about the code. Like, I remember when I was planning to come, so I was doing what I call informational interviews with people just to get a sense of what the marketing industry is like and the things I need to know before I get, so that just I come in get prepped for hiring. And I remember someone asking me like, "Why are you coming here? It's too cold here. You're coming from a tropical country," and then he's like, "You're deciding to land in February. Like who does that?"
Oh, you landed in February?
Yes, I landed in February.
Oh, that's pretty rough.
Oh, it was rough. It was
Oh
rough.
my.
Like I moved. I when I left Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. I think it was minus. It was sorry. It was plus 32, 33. It was really hot then. I get to Ottawa and I think it was just minus 10 that day. The next day it drops to minus 25 or something. I think my body went into shock. Like, I think that, like, my body, me and my wife, we were in shock for 2 weeks. Like we have at that time we had a 4 year old. He
Mm-hmm.
just moved on with his life as if nothing was going. But me and my wife, we both felt sick. And I think it was just my body, just like, what did you do to me? Like, what is going on here? Like, wait, it was hot, and now it's cold. Like,
Yeah.
like, I was confused. My body was confused. So for like 2 weeks, I was just struggling, and then I was saying to someone that this last winter felt very normal for me. I mean, despite all the cold and so on, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm finally beginning to somewhat acclimatize to the weather, because I'm like,
That's
it
good.
does, yeah, it doesn't really hit me that bad anymore.
Yeah, if you think about it, like 30 something degrees and then negative 20 something degrees, that's like a difference of like
Yeah,
50.
that's
Yeah, that's
50.
a crazy number.
Yeah, that's a wild jump. And so, staying on that thing, like about moving. And so I think for me is I always find that with students and people who come, like people like me who come as PR, there's always a difference. And I'm just kind of wondering, for you, do you think if you look at your experience, like moving as a student, and think about maybe some of the people you've spoken to, because you're a journalist right now, which means you talk to a lot of immigrants and their experience, do you think that is there any path that you think that is easier? Do you think coming as a student gives you more time to kind of find yourself and find your way? Or do you still get into that? I call it the immigration checklist, where there's a checklist in your head of things that you have to get done by a certain time, and you just keep going and going and going and going and going, and then you look back and it's like, oh, 4 years are gone, and I still have a ton of stuff on my to-do list, even though I've done a ton of stuff.
That's interesting. Okay, I would say that I haven't really talked to a lot of landed PRs, so
Okay.
I don't know what that experience is like. I definitely was carefree when I came here as a student. I would say though that like I come from a very privileged background in the sense that I'm very lucky in that my parents were able to afford
Oh,
the insane international tuition fees. Like they gave me kind of free reign to pursue what I want to do in life. So in that sense, I feel like because of all of those, comforts and privileges, I was able to afford to be comfortable and a bit carefree when I landed as a student. Because to be honest with you, when I came to Canada, I didn't really, my goal number one was to study at a world class university, study in the social sciences, do very well in that. And that was mostly that. The whole, wanting to stay here, maybe immigrating here, that came to my mind as time went on. And the more that I began loving this place and especially the people that I met in university. And I feel like as a student, as an international student at U of T, I did get a lot of support. Like there was the International Student Center. They told us everything we needed to know. I lived on campus as well, so we had a ton of like dons. I think, yeah, dons and residence advisors who kind of guided us. So in that sense, I was able to be carefree. But I don't know what it's like to be a landed PR. It seemed like you had a long checklist when you came here.
oh yeah, you're like, it feels like I feel like you get in and I need to get a house. Okay, I need to get a job.
Mm.
Oh shit, I need to put the kid in school. Okay, yeah, the kid's in school right now. Okay, we need to get him settled in. Oh, okay, we need to.
Y-
Oh, okay, the wife is pregnant. Okay, we need to get sorted, get a doctor, get a gynecologist. Okay, we need to find a hospital where she can give birth to. Oh shit, we need to get. We don't have health cards, so we need health cards. So let's go get health
Ooh.
cards. And then oh, okay. Ah, I see. Okay, wait, where do we shop? Oh, this is where we shop. Oh, like you just keep. Oh no, the kid is the family doctor. How do you get a family doctor? Oh, okay, you need to sign up.
Oh my gosh. I have a question. When you came here, like, did you know anyone, like friends or family, to help
So
you out?
yeah, I mean, I landed in Ottawa. I had one friend. I'm forever grateful to him and his wife. We stayed in their house for like 2 months, and it made life much easier,
Mm.
way much easier for us. Um, but then it was Ottawa. I didn't have a ton of friends there. I mean, I live in Calgary now. And I think that if I landed in Calgary, I don't know, honestly, because
Mm.
I think what Uka and his wife did for us, I think that was something. It really made life much easier. So I don't know if I would have gotten that if I landed in Calgary. I don't know. But in Calgary, I have a bigger community here. So in Calgary, I feel more settled. Like Calgary also has this thing where the people here are really warm, like super warm. Yeah, like super, honestly, super warm. Like Ottawa people, I mean, God forgive me, but in Ottawa, Ottawa was a bit cold. Like people felt a bit standoffish. In Calgary, you get this big city, small city vibes. Everyone is so open, so warm, so willing to talk. You know, it's one of those things where when I was moving here, I remember people saying to me, "You're moving to a redneck state." Like, say, "Oh, yeah, that you're going to meet all these people who there's a ton of people who are very conservative and who more racist and stuff." But it's kind of similar to the analogy where they say you hear a lot about poor areas and people say, "Don't go there. Things happen there." Then you go and visit there, and you're like, wow, I had the best time of my life. I met some of the best people I've ever met in my life. That's
Hmm.
just the way Calgary was for me. Because people, I feel like people just talk about things from afar without fully understanding, without maybe they've not even fully experienced. They just heard stuff on media and all that. And but here Calgary's been different. You know what? It's been fun so far.
Okay, that's nice. I've never been to Alberta, but I might be there in the summer. So
Oh, you
I
better let me
will.
know.
Yes.
Please do, please do.
Yes.
Um, so I want to ask. So you carefree and all that. When did you start missing home?
Ooh, missing home. In my first year, I would get like moments where I would feel lonely in the sense that, wow, I would get lonely, but it was never like prolonged because I'm very lucky in that I have so many great friends in my first year. There were a lot of international students who were also living on campus, and we kind of made each other our, second families
Yeah,
here in Toronto, where I'm currently based in.
yeah.
Especially like I had a roommate at the time, and she just she was raised here in Canada, and like she really showed me the ropes, talked to me about I should file my taxes and like I should get this meal plan or do this, and like she even helped me move out. Like shout out to Tereshma. She's really like my big sister kind of figure here. And so because of that support system that I have, I didn't really miss home. Um, Although these days I have been missing home more. I think it's because when I was in school, I was doing like 4 or 5 courses in a semester. I was juggling like multiple part-time jobs all the time. I was always thinking about my future and my work. Now that I've graduated, I feel like I've been thinking about things long term now. Like my parents are getting older. Maybe I should stay somewhere, um, like go home maybe for like longer periods of time. And so in this period of my life, it's when I'm missing home more, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I think it does actually,
Yeah.
and I think it kind of tracks with how I think about the. Let's use the example of a landed PR versus international students, because what you say now about or how you describe the community you had around you, which is you landed, you're living in school. You had a roommate who showed you the ropes and stuff. That social structure sort of helps you navigate the professional structure, which is for you the school work. However,
Mhm.
most times for a landed PR person, and I'm talking from my experience from people I've spoken to, even if you have people and all that, so you all come in, but you're all caught up in your little bubbles of stuff that you need to do.
Mhm.
And yes, I think you can probably find communities like church and soccer, the way they are like occasional bonding moments. But because you have a ton of things to do that take you away from those bonding moments, you find that more often than not, you're forced to sit down and think about, okay, why did I actually even come here in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, where is everyone? Like, oh, I called X and he's too busy for me right now.
I so get that now because back in school, everyone was like, "Yeah, let's meet after class."
Yeah.
Everyone's around, now. Like I'm in Toronto, downtown Toronto right now, but I have friends in like 2 hours away, like 1 hour away, and it's just hard now to like get people together.
Yep.
And because of that, like I miss home more because back home, my family is always
Mm.
with me. I have like three siblings, so like we're a big family. Yeah, so in that sense, also like I really appreciate you like sharing your like struggles about being a landed PR, because now that I'm having trouble with getting PR, I've always thought about, man, like landed PR people are so lucky, they have it easy, no offense. But
Oh
now I'm
no.
thinking now I'm thinking, oh, you guys, yeah, you went through it too.
Yeah. I feel like the immigrant experience is such it upends you because you come in here with two suitcases or three suitcases at best, and you kind of start to restart your life, like fully restart your life. You rebuild everything: social capital, emotional capital, professional capital. You have to rebuild everything, and huh, it is work.
It's work.
Just something when you talk about your family and all that. I want to explore something. I think I talked a bit about it in the pre-show. That liminal space, like that space where you are here and you're not here, and it kind of shows up in things like when you're thinking about your parents. You're like, do I go back home longer, or do I stay? And then when you go home, after a couple of days, you find out that you don't exactly fit in here, and you're just trying to find your way or find this place for you. And you can sort of feel that when the time finally comes, when your parents are no more, there's really no place for you again. You know, because for me now, my two parents are passed on. Since my father
Mhm.
passed on, you just kind of feel like there's no space for you again, because the parents are like almost like the siblings are the same, but I don't know the siblings really fulfill that role as much as the parents do, of that place called home. The parents are like that symbol of home. And I wonder if it's the same for you, if you ever come across that fear or that worry and all that.
Ooh, I don't know if I have felt, I guess, out of place is what we're talking about sometimes when I go home. Like I love all my family and friends, but sometimes they make jokes that make me feel like, ooh, I'm still, like sometimes people would joke like, "Oh, do you still know how to speak Tagalog?"
Ah.
And of course. And it is in the pre-show you talked about how when we leave, it feels like the city that we
Yeah.
came from has moved on without us. And I
Yeah.
felt that so much when I went home recently, like this past December. Like there's this area near my place that has become Koreatown. It became Koreatown while I was away. Like there were like signs in like Korean, more Korean restaurants, even a police station with like Korean
Oh,
characters
interesting.
on it. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, when did this happen? Yeah, so that was just like a jarring experience for me. Many restaurants that my family and I used to go to are no longer there.
Oh.
And there's just like, and those are the places where we would hang out. We would know the staff, we were regulars. And I guess those were kind of I don't even have the word for it right now, but it just felt weird. And it made me think about, it's moments like those that made me think about, like, what am I even doing in Canada? Because, like, the Philippines still feels like home, and a lot of my family are there, and just like many of those, again, like all of these feelings also are like exacerbated by the fact that I'm having so much trouble getting permanent residency here, even though I did everything right,
Right.
and so much more even. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel in
Yeah.
that. Like I feel like yeah. I feel like the Canadian immigration space has become such a the past 12 months we've seen so much change that it's kind of scary, to be honest.
Hmm. I kind of tell people that this is the, I don't know if this is true, but this is how it feels like from my perspective. Like, this is the absolute worst time to immigrate to Canada, is what I say to people. Because, number one, like, they slashed the permanent residency spots. Um, and at the same time, cost of living is like super high. Um, and yeah.
And I'm really sorry to hear how stressful getting the PR has been. And I just want to kind of move on to the part of where how did you get into talking about immigration or writing about immigration? Like, why didn't you do something else?
So I've always loved writing and reading. I grew up with my mom. Like, when I was a baby, my mom would read books to me, and I feel like that fostered a strong sense of, like, I love fiction and nonfiction. But for the longest time, I didn't know, or I didn't really, yeah, it didn't cross my mind that writing and telling stories could actually be my career. Um, Up until I read a book by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who I know is
Oh,
Nigerian.
yeah.
I love her. I love her. I always tell people that, she's like part of my top three authors. And I don't know, have you read her
Oh yeah, I read
work?
her
Or
books. Yeah, I read her
okay,
books.
okay,
Yeah,
amazing,
yeah. She's
amazing.
she's she's one of my heroes. Honestly, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I read Americana, which I think is
Yeah.
like one of her most famous novels. It's about this international student from Nigeria who moved to the States. I think the character in the book did, like, went to college in like Pennsylvania. And I know that Chimamanda herself was an international student
Hmm.
in the US as well. And so I felt so seen by this book, right? In the book, the character, and this sounds like a tangent, but I will get to a point.
No, that's okay.
In the novel, this in the novel, the main character, goes to school, is an international student, faces like racism, some challenges, some, like, assimilation as well. And those are things that I kind of related to. And then this character, eventually, this is a spoiler, but, builds a blog, was able to gain massive success from it, like culturally, socially, and like financially. Um, and it's like seeing this character who has kind of a similar profile to me, like an international student main character, um, inspired me to kind of start writing as well. And knowing that the author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie herself was an international student, and now she's like one of
Yeah.
the most amazing authors living today, it inspired me that, oh my god, international students from the global south also have a voice,
Yeah.
and our voices are so unique and so valid, and we belong as much as anyone else in, like,
Yeah.
North America or whatever continent or
Yeah.
country we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I credit that book so much for giving me a lot of courage and confidence to start writing for the public. I love, I love,
Oh,
I love
that's
her.
such a beautiful story, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then what happened was, so I read Americana during COVID, like the peak of COVID, and at the time I was back home actually in the Philippines, and I was, doing my classes online with a 12-hour time difference, and I was just thinking to myself, I hate the fact that my parents are paying like $50,000 like per year for this online school situation. Like, this is so unfair. This sucks. And so I just started thinking about, I used that dissatisfaction to kind of like ask myself, why am I even paying this much money in the first place? And do people in Canada know that international students pay this much? Because, and this is like a fact, like, um, I think across Canada, international students pay 3 to 4 times more than domestic students. But at U of T, domestic students on average pay like $6,000 a year, but international students pay an average of $60,000 per year. So it's 10 times more. And I didn't think that people knew that, and so I just wanted to write about that. It's just crazy. And I yeah, so I there's this on campus student newspaper called The Varsity, and I wrote a 2,000 word like personal essay slash reported feature situation for them, and it went around. People read it, and I realized, oh my god, people resonate with what I have to say, and this is I should keep going.
You've kept going.
I have kept going. Like, it's incredible to think that 4 years on, I'm still here and I'm still doing the same thing, and it's just crazy. Like, me from 4 years ago would be so like shocked that I was able to keep going. And I think I was also at the right place at the right time, in
Mm.
the sense that around that time, I think people in Canada started thinking more about international students. Like, it was being put on their radar at that time. Because when I was, that was what, in like 2021 was when I wrote that article. I feel like people didn't. I feel like people didn't have the same consciousness about international students as they do now.
Yeah. Even though I
Yeah.
feel like now it feels like it went really negative in the past couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. I think before, the impression that people had about international students was, oh yeah, they're like super rich. They drive, Bugattis or whatever. I don't even they have like Louis Vuitton handbags. But now I think people's impression of international students are, oh my god, they're, just I don't even know what people because like I try to stay away from like hearing those negative sentiments because
Yeah.
it just
Very.
won't do.
Yeah. It won't do
Yeah,
you any good. It won't do you any good at all. At all.
exactly.
So let's kind of move on to your Walrus article, the one where you call the system a betrayal.
Yes.
I don't understand. I mean, so I feel like part of that is from your personal experience. And I just want, I mean, you talked a bit about it, but I just want us to kind of talk a bit about it in the sense that, because I hear, there's something you say, which is, you know, the rules used to be study hard, graduate, work for a year or two, apply for PR, and then boom, you're a Canadian. That sort of thing. But it just feels like the rules have changed. No one was asked, hey, we promised you this before, so we will at least allow you take take advantage of the promise we kept for you, and while the new ones coming in get to experience new. Just like, oh, everyone's just going to suffer from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Betrayal was the word I used because, like, I made the decision to study and come to Canada under different rules, different rules and policies. And I made a decision based on that. And it just feels so unfair. And I know that the world is not fair, blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking about like real human lives being caught up in an ever changing web of rules. It feels like a betrayal because, yeah, as you mentioned, when I came here in 2019, I thought that, oh, if I, study, work hard, do great, I'll be able to get permanent residency. And now I've done all of that, but I am nowhere near attaining permanent residency. Um, and I can get into all of that if
Oh
you
yeah,
want me
please
to
do.
get into like the
Please do.
numbers and everything.
Please do.
So I don't know if, like, in a nutshell, um, attaining permanent residency is based on points. Like, as a person, you're assigned a score by the government, right, about how valuable you are,
Yeah.
and whether they'll accept you or not to stay here permanently. And before international students, because we have Canadian degrees, we have like we've already assimilated here, really, to some extent, and we have work experience also in Canada. We were able to be our scores were able to reach like the level that the
Mhm.
government wanted, but now that is not the case. That is not the case, and that's because of like various factors. So number one, the permanent residency spots have been reduced. Right now, it used to be that they would accept like, let me just look at my little numbers here.
Well, that's okay. It's
Okay,
rough. Yeah.
almost 500,000 to 395,000. And so, because you reduce the number of people becoming permanent residents, of course, it would raise the bar for the kinds of people that the government admits. And because of that, like it's not enough anymore that you have a Canadian bachelor's degree and you've worked here. You have to be a master's degree holder now or a PhD holder. You have to like speak French now, maybe, or you have to kind of done your studies in like healthcare and trades or agriculture. And so that landscape has only been in place in the past, I would say, 2 years, past year. And so people like me who have been here for 5 years, 6 years, we didn't come to Canada under these rules. And so, yeah, it makes me question. It's sometimes like I would tell this story to my family, and my dad would say, "Oh, like these new rules, why don't they just apply it to people who are about to come here?" And so they're making decisions based on the rules in place now. And I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
That would be nice. But that is that in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, I feel you on that.
Hmm.
I feel like so the way I think of it is that I feel like there are two sides to it. Like it's such a I think the first part of it is when you like we should have a human conversation and then have a system conversation.
Yeah.
Um so I get the sense that Canada is saying, okay, we want to get certain kind of people in, but then again, you're right. Like you made certain rules and allowed people in based on certain rules, and so the question is, what's the cutoff between when you say, hey, these rules apply to A, B, C, D, E, and then G, F, it doesn't apply to them because they just came in at this point in time, you know, because part of what tires me out about the immigration conversation is how utilitarian it can sound sometimes, where we start to treat people like economic units, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you
Especially with
know,
the whole, you're assigned a score kind
yeah,
of
exactly,
system.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we do that with some humanity in it, because I feel like if you deal with some humanity, it allows you to make calls like, okay, like how do we treat those who we say this is how to do it, and they did it that way. They played by all the rules. They did every single thing that we asked them to do, and then we pull the rock from under their feet and tell them, no, no, you should just go home.
Yeah.
I told you to come to Canada. You coming to Canada to school doesn't guarantee you that you stay. You know,
Hmm.
that was such an interesting statement to make, to be honest. But yeah,
And
you
I
need to
would
say
say
something.
that, oh, sorry, the government has really encouraged this type of messaging over the past, like, what, decade now at this point, which is like, we want a young workforce who is like educated in Canada, who has a couple of years to
Oh
assimilate.
yeah, oh yeah,
Um, and yeah, and then, we want you to come here and we want you to stay here. And I was like, yeah, let's go, again, back in 2019. And now it's like the messaging has like reversed, really.
yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, and I wrote this in the article as well, like, if you read the like immigration levels plan document, like the government has estimated that in the next couple of years, because they decreased permanent residency spots, and that they have become stricter on like post graduation work permits, stuff like that, all in all, they expect 1 million people to leave the country. in the next few years. And when I read that, like my heart broke a bit because I'm like, every single one of those 1 million people has a story like mine where we've already built a life here, really. Like we have friends here, romantic relationships, maybe. We have our careers here, finances. Finances are, it's so hard. These banks are so hard to deal with, okay? And I don't want to go through them again, you know? And every single one of those people has that at stake. And it is so, I guess, dehumanizing to think that, oh, 1 million people will leave and
And
it's,
just pick up, they'll just pick up their bags and leave.
yeah, it's
Just
not
because
just,
it's that simplification that is just so tiring. Like, oh, they just pick up their bags and leave. No, that's not what's going to happen. Like, you're literally asking people to upend their lives. And, you know, because, I'm always like, I always try to say that I always tend to think, even though I know we humans are not that, I'm not that rational. Like, I tend to say that, okay, like, what's the rational? Yeah, I mean, I like to pretend that I think I'm rational, but
oh no, me too.
yeah, like, oh, yeah, like, what's the rational conversation here? Okay, maybe, yeah, Canada has to take care of itself, and I agree. Um, Canada has to have the drive a better immigration conversation. That's very important to me. But again, also is like there's the part of it which is we mustn't lose our humanity in the process, and things, things can be done much better, because you see some people, you see some comments people make on all these things, like random people, and talk about, oh, they should just go, that, oh yeah, they're driving up house prices. People say some really interesting things, and I'm like, what we've allowed is we've turned the argument into a this versus that. So it's either
Hmm.
if the immigrants leave, the house prices will go down, for example, or
Hmm.
sorry, or there'll be more houses. But it's like someone says, is the problem the immigrants or is the problem the housing policy? Is the
Hmm.
problem is the problem crime or is the problem that we lack proper law enforcement? Is the problem that our borders are porous, or the problem, or is that the immigrants are rushing through the borders, or that we're not adequately enforcing who comes in and who goes out? I feel like what we keep doing with the conversation is we leave the real problem and find a scapegoat. So the immigrant becomes
Yeah.
the scapegoat. It's like, okay, who's the scapegoat here? I think that's the easiest person to blame, and you know,
I would say like the conversation about like, newcomers and immigrants drive up the housing prices, that conversation irks me so much because the government has an active special immigration pathway that prioritizes tradespeople to come here to build houses. Like recently at my workplace, at the magazine that I work for, Maclean's, we recently published about this newcomer from Lebanon who came here to build houses. And he pointed out that, and I will quote here, immigrants make up nearly a quarter of the country's general contractors and builders of residential buildings and around 40% of architects and civil engineers. That is a huge number
yeah,
of newcomers and immigrants trying to solve the housing crisis. So why are you blaming the, newcomers and immigrants for the housing crisis? It really is scapegoating the most vulnerable populations for the country's problems. You're totally right about that.
yeah, that's what we keep doing.
Yeah, I know.
Gosh.
Sucks.
Like
It sucks.
it's like it sucks in many ways. Like, because I'm just like, and part of what I'm hoping to help with this year, or part of what I'm hoping that this podcast and the stories I tell this year help, is just kind of change that narrative a bit, or at least share the other side of the story. Because I wonder if we've allowed the government and or media, government and media itself, or we've allowed the story of one side of the story being told, oh, this is happening because that's what happened, or because that's how that happened, and no one is going into specifics. Like, what does this mean Because when you say 1 million people leave, what does it mean for 1 million people to leave the country? Like what would that actually mean for Canada?
I know.
You
Sorry, I
know?
would say that that worries me too, like from a workplace perspective. I'm sorry to like, put economic capital on newcomers, but genuinely, a lot of newcomers fill in like lower wage job positions, as in like in restaurants, at like restaurants, retail stores. And so if a lot of these people leave, who's gonna do those jobs as well, is what I'm thinking. And in terms of like, if Canada is really concerned about the number of people in the country, I would suggest that they turn the temporary residents already here in the country, already paying taxes, already working, already assimilated, turn people like me, temporary residents, into permanent residents. Because, like, when Canadians see that, oh my God, we will have 395,000 people as like permanent residents, that means like 395,000 more people are coming into the country. And I'm like, no, a lot of these 395,000 people are already here just wanting more stability and security by being permanent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And luckily, the government is introducing a policy where, starting this year, they're going to take, 40% of all PR spots to temporary residents. Because, again, we're already here, we're already working.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like that is something that is a solution potentially if the country really is concerned about its numbers.
Yeah. It's to be like, because it's one thing that I don't know if the word is it tires me, or I just think about it and I'm like, I think what really tires me out is the rhetoric that follows, because then the rhetoric just means that rhetoric models up the conversation, and you just have people shouting at each other, and I'm like, we should have a Canadian conversation, which is what's the best thing for the country moving forward, not this thing where we've sort of almost boxed it into a Canada versus the immigrant conversation, because that's what it feels like right now. And I'm like, we that path is not a path we want to head down. It's a horrible path to go down, and all the things like we cannot have a Canada versus the immigrant. It's a Canadian conversation, and like, how does this work for Canada and for the immigrant? Because I feel like that way, even that phrasing itself allows for more empathy, for more emotion, for more, hopefully, more sensibilities and understanding from both parties, no matter what policy or what calls we make, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not adversarial. But once it's a you versus me, then we're just going down somewhere where everybody feels hurt or harmed or shortchanged, because it just feels like what you're doing is you're always picking the short term call that it doesn't matter who it hurts. You just pick whatever suits me.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, like, that's what where I'm hoping we go to. We go to the point where it's a how do we have a Canadian conversation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like how do we kind of work together and like
Yeah,
figure it
exactly.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would say that, like, as a person who is going through it with the immigration department, I admit that whenever I think about the immigration department, I'm like, so, like, a bit mad, a bit like, not that adversarial relationship that you're talking about. I kind of feel that right now, and I know it's not productive. It's a yucky emotion, but yeah, hopefully with the articles that I publish, which is like part emotion, part my personal story, part these are some solutions,
yeah,
um and this is what's going on, like hopefully that would kind of shape the conversation. But you're right, like we have to work together, but it's also so hard,
yeah. No,
because like we are in a position of less power,
yeah,
like newcomers, and so I think, yes, let's work together, but more of the onus is on the government because they have the more power in this situation.
I think it's a two-way street, though.
Okay, yeah, no, tell me
Yeah,
about
but
it.
No. I think I agree. I think the more of the onus on the government because they have the power to drive the conversation. I
Mhm.
think that I agree on that. But again, I think it's probably a two-way street to some extent because both parties will have to kind of make steps, you know. But you're right. Like I think, yeah, the government has to drive that conversation because, you know, the more power you have, the more you have to be careful about what you say because what you say can be misconstrued, taken, used, become the mission and vision of someone. You know, I get
Yeah, I get it. Yes.
yeah, you know, so I think that's the thing. But yeah. We're rounding up now. I think I have one more question for you.
Okay, yes.
With all this going on right now, what part of your journey do you regret so far?
What part of the journey do I regret? Ooh, honestly, this might sound a bit weird, but
That's
I'm
okay.
really a person who doesn't regret. I
That's
don't know.
okay.
In the sense that I don't regret because I know that I made certain decisions, exhibited certain behaviors, I guess, just in general, um, based on my circumstances at the time, based on how I thought at the time. In this case, I don't regret anything about my immigration journey because I made decisions based on information that was available to me at the time. And I know in myself that I have tried my best every step of the way. And this also goes with like my life. I do try my best in every sort of instance to be my best self. And as long as I know that I tried my best, I don't regret anything. I don't know. Do you have any regrets?
Me?
Are you a person that regrets?
I do some. I mean, I do. Like I suppose my regrets are funny. Like for example, I regret that I didn't travel. Like I wanted to go see my dad before he passed because I kind of felt
Mm,
it, but I kind of felt like I just kept on saying, "Oh yeah, which is a fair call." Like I have to buy flight tickets. I have to think about traveling. Traveling to Nigeria from here is like it's a full day of
yeah.
flying and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As I kept thinking of that, and then I get a call that he's no more, and then you start wondering, like, okay, so why did you leave him? Like, so you start wondering, like, what are you doing here? Like, you
Yeah, I
know,
bet.
yeah, like if you aren't even there for when your
Mm-hmm.
parents pass on, like because when you move, I feel like you move and you go start a new life, but you leave everything behind, and you are kind of stuck with trying to build something new out of the world you have. But you built something before, right? And it was beautiful in its
Oh
own
my
way.
gosh. Yeah. I'm so sorry your dad passed away.
No, that's okay.
First of all.
I'm much better at dealing with it right now. But
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. I think that's one thing. I think that's one thing about immigration that you kind of live with that fear of someday they're gone and you're too far away to see it coming. You can probably I sensed it, for example. I sensed it. I somewhat sensed it, but then I didn't act on it. But yeah,
Yeah. I empathize with that so much because like I have been thinking more and more about, like if I don't gain permanent residency here and I have to leave, maybe that won't be the end of the world after all, is what I'm beginning to think these days. Because you're right. Back home, I told you, right? Like, my family, we're pretty comfortable. So it's not a bad life at all back home. And so and also like research has shown again and again that it's like your community, the people around you, your social relationships that make everyone happy. Like if
yeah,
you ask people at the end of their lives what they are most happy about, it's like their social relationships. If you ask them what you regret most about, you didn't spend enough time with the people you love.
yeah,
So those are the things that I think about all the time now. But I also have to remind myself about, why did I come to Canada in the first place? It was about, it was about as a journalist, it is hard to write and speak freely and be free in the Philippines, where it's like one of the most dangerous places in the world to practice journalism. And I just have to tell myself, I am here because I have a purpose, and I have to keep reminding myself that. But at the same time, it's an uneasy decision because at the back of my head, I'm always thinking about my family and also my best friends who I grew up with.
Yeah.
I would go home and they're like, oh yeah, I'm working in this place and we met up, or like my friend group and I met the other day and we missed you, blah blah. And I was like, I miss you too. It sucks that I'm missing all of these milestones. And my younger brother, I have a younger brother. Right now he's, oh God, how old is he? 15? He's 15. But when I left the Philippines, he was like, oh God, 9?
Damn.
Yeah. So, but we're still close. But I missed a lot of his growing up, Yeah.
That thing you talk about, that thing where life just moves on without you. Whether you like it or it just moves on.
Yeah. Yeah. That I have to think about that more. It moves on without you. Before we end, I do want to ask you one question.
Sure, shoot.
Okay, so what is your favorite Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie book?
So to be honest, I think it's that the Americana one. Like there's no one, because what I liked about her. Sorry, it's not Americana. It's the book called Half a Yellow Sun.
Oh my God, yes, that's on my reading list. That's been on my reading list, yeah.
Yes, that's the one. Because that was how. So I read Half a Yellow Sun, and then I started coming across, and I loved the fact that stuff she used to post, stuff she talks about. I love the fact that because she's she's Igbo. I'm Igbo too.
Oh.
And she's one of the people that I see that reminds me of how my mom raised me and how my mom was raised, about where women are not just not some side piece in the house. No, women are a core part of the society and can provide as much value as anyone. And so I think seeing her do that, and I feel like because my mom passed on 6 years ago, and so I think I suspect that after my mom passed, I started almost, she was one of those people that I see my mom feel like, oh yeah, this is how my mom would want me to raise a daughter if I have a daughter. To raise a daughter who goes out into the world and does stuff because she was raised to not to think inferior of herself. So I think that's the biggest thing I really. So I don't think I really like her. Like, if you say, oh, why do you like this? No, it's not about her books. It's not her books. I feel like, oh, she's an amazing writer and all that. Yeah, but I think it's more for who she stands for and the stuff she does and what she talks about is why I absolutely love her. Because I'm like, yes, that's an example that women in Nigeria need, because we need this kind of, or any immigrant woman or any immigrant Black woman. Like, just look at Chimamanda. She's the one.
Yeah. Yes. I love books because, sure, like writing is great, whatever, but it's really like the books that speak to us and like the personal messages that we can take from it. That's, I think, what makes certain books our favorites, right? Obviously, I'm not from Nigeria. I'm not Igbo either, but I did see so much of myself and my experiences in Americana and like the whole international student angle. She's just, especially since, again, she's like from the global south. It's just so inspiring. Okay, the conclusion of this podcast is that we love her. We love her.
We love her. Oh, she is.
Everyone listening to this podcast, please read her work.
Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Yes, thank you as well.
I understand her when she says that she feels adversarial when she thinks about the IRCC and the rest. It's a fair way to think about these things. But I'm really hoping that in general we start to have a more Kenyan conversation. And, just sort of, hopefully we step out of this thing where it feels like it's Canada versus the immigrant. But thank you for getting to this point. As always, please, if you know someone we should talk to, send them my way. If you know someone who will love this episode, send it to them. On Substack, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Please sign up, like, share, subscribe. Just help us get the word out. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.